You clicked to find out why Chile is the strangest country in the world, and I promise you're in the right place. This land is breaking all the rules of nature right now. You need to see this because the world is changing, and Chile holds the secrets of our survival. But beneath the desert sand lies a dark discovery that is older than history itself. Get ready to dive into a journey you will never forget. Part 1. Where the Earth ends and the mystery begins. Have you ever had the feeling that the world sometimes feels like a puzzle where some pieces just don't fit? Imagine a place that challenges everything you learned in school about what a country should be like. I'm not talking about a distant planet, but a slice of land so bizarre that the residents themselves say it's where the world ends. But here's the secret. What happens on this edge of the map is so strange that it makes fiction seem dull. And if you think the shape of this place is the only thing weird, wait until you see what happens when the sun sets in the desert. Something we'll explore in part 2, and that will change your view of what's up there. The line that defies logic. Imagine you are holding a map. You see square, round, and giant countries, and you find Chile. It is a thin line squeezed between giant mountains of ice and an endless ocean. It's so long that it crosses climates that shouldn't exist in the same place. But here comes the conflict. How do you govern a country where one end is burning in the sun and the other is freezing with penguins? If you drive just 2 hours one way, you fall into the sea or hit a 6,000-meter mountain. Therefore, this geographic prison has created a unique survival laboratory where nature dictates the rules and man just tries to follow. The people who overcame 2 empires. In this scenario of isolation, there is a group of people who did something that seemed impossible. And we are talking about the Mapuches. They lived in dense forests and dangerous swamps in the south. But 2 of the greatest empires in history, the Incas and the Spanish, tried to dominate them with powerful armies and metal weapons. Who? The warriors of the land. They used the rugged terrain itself as a weapon. Therefore, while almost all of America was conquered, they remained independent for hundreds of years, proving that in Chile, whoever knows the geography is in charge. The mystery of the sailing houses. If you go south to the islands of Chiloé, you will see something that seems to have come out of a dream. People there treat their homes as if they were living beings. And there is a tradition called minga. Imagine you want to change your address, but you love your wooden house. But the roads are bad or don't even exist. What do? Abandon everything. Why? For the residents of Chiloé, the solution is simple but unbelievable. They remove the entire house from its foundations. Therefore, the community comes together, ties the house to oxen or even boats, and floats it across the ocean to the new land. It's an entire neighborhood saving a home. The secret kept under the sand. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel so you will always receive updated content when it is posted. Now, prepare yourself for what is perhaps the most disturbing fact about this country. When we think of mummies, we immediately imagine Egypt, pharaohs, and golden pyramids. And the Atacama Desert in northern Chile is a place where nothing grows and the air is pure salt. But researchers found perfectly preserved bodies beneath the hot sand. What did they discover here? These people, the Chinchorro people, were not kings. They were simple fishermen. Why? Because they started mummifying their dead 2,000 years before the Egyptians even thought about it. It wasn't about wealth, it was about not letting the ones they loved disappear. The desert is so dry that it drinks the moisture, turning ordinary people into eternal statues. This is just the beginning of the weirdness. You've seen how they deal with the earth and the dead, but none of that compares to what the Chilean government hides in the heavens. There is an official department paid for with public money just to hunt for something that shouldn't be there. And that's why you need to see the second part, because what they found on the mountaintops is out of this world. Part 2, the heaven that hides secrets and the earth that does not forgive. Have you ever looked up at the night sky and felt like something was watching you back? In Chile, this isn't just a horror movie sensation, it's a state affair. If part 1 showed you that the ground they walk on is ancient and mysterious, what happens above the clouds will leave you sleepless. The government isn't just looking at the stars, they are looking for answers that the rest of the world prefers to ignore. And you need to understand this now, because in part 3, We're going to go down to the most dangerous place on the planet and find out how they built cities where the Earth literally tries to swallow people. The Space Visitors Bureau. Imagine a country where talking about spaceships doesn't make you crazy, but rather a respected researcher. And Chile has skies so clear that you can see the universe with the naked eye. But with such clarity, things began to appear that military radars could not explain. Lights moving at impossible speeds over the mountains. WHO, the Committee for the Study of Anomalous Aerial Phenomena. Therefore, the Chilean government created an official department within the Air Force just to investigate UFOs. They take this so seriously that there are official tourist routes for those who want to go on a date. In Chile, the sky is not the limit. It is an open archive of mysteries. The Mars-Earth Laboratory. If you want to know what it's like to live on another planet, you don't need a rocket. Just go to the Atacama Desert. And this place is so dry that some parts have never seen a drop of water in all of recorded history. The Earth is red, stony, and lifeless. But NASA scientists began to frequent this desert with million-dollar robots and equipment. What did they discover here? The soil is so similar to that of Mars that they used Chile to test how robots will survive on the red planet. Why? Because if something can withstand the scorching sun and total lack of humidity of the Atacama, it can probably withstand anywhere in the universe. The giant who watches the horizon. In the middle of this immensity, there is a titan of metal and glass that seems to observe everything. And we're talking about the ALMA Observatory, a set of giant antennas on top of a mountain. But the air up there is so thin that humans can barely breathe without help. It is a place where the most advanced technology in the world touches the absolute void. Why? To capture signs of the birth of the first stars, billions of years ago. Therefore, Chile became the eyes of humanity. If we one day discover life elsewhere, the chances of the first signal passing through an antenna in Chile are almost total. The mountain that breathes fire and ice. But it's not all technology and stars. Sometimes the Earth itself decides to scream. And Chile is home to the highest active volcano on the planet, Ojos del Salado. He is a monster almost 7,000 meters tall. But at the top of this volcano, where the heat should melt everything, there is a permanent lake of ice water. How is this possible? Who? Nature defying physics. This lake is considered the highest in the world, surviving inside the crater of an active volcano. Therefore, Chile proves that it can mix fire and ice in the same place, creating scenarios that seem impossible to the human mind. This all sounds like something out of a science fiction book, right? But the lights in the sky and giant volcanoes are just the scenery. The true test of courage comes when the ground decides to move. In part 3, I'll tell you about the day the world almost broke in half and how this country became the most resilient place on Earth. You won't believe what they built to keep from falling. Part 3, the country that refuses to fall. Have you ever felt the ground disappear beneath your feet? In Chile, this is not just a metaphor. It is a reality that can happen at any second. If in the previous parts we saw that the sky is a mystery and the desert is from another world, now you will understand what happens when nature decides to test the limits of human beings. This is where we discover why Chile is, without a doubt, the most resilient country on the planet. The day the earth screamed. Imagine you are at home on an ordinary Sunday afternoon, and suddenly the world begins to rock with a force that no one has ever seen before. In 1960, the city of Valdivia was the epicenter of the largest earthquake ever measured by science. But it wasn't just an ordinary tremor. It lasted almost 10 minutes and was so violent that it changed the map of the coast, sinking parts of the coast under the sea. Who? Tectonic plates fighting an epic battle. The energy released was so great that it created giant waves that crossed the ocean and hit Japan. Therefore, Chile learned the hard way that to survive here, you need to be stronger than the earth itself. The tower that dances with death. In the middle of the capital, Santiago, there is a construction that defies common sense. And we're talking about the Gran Torre Santiago, the tallest building in all of South America. But building a giant skyscraper in the place that shakes the most in the world seems like a suicidal idea, don't you think? Why? Because if a 9.0 magnitude earthquake hits the city, everything would normally turn to dust. The secret here is not to be rigid, but to be flexible. Therefore, engineers created a system where the building literally dances and shakes during tremors so as not to break. It is proof that human intelligence can overcome the brute force of geology. The tree that survived the dinosaurs. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel here because it's free, and that way you'll always be up to date with new videos. Now let me tell you about a survivor who was here long before us. In southern Chile lives the Araucaria, a tree that looks like a prehistoric umbrella, and they can live for more than 2,000 years, facing blizzards and volcanic eruptions. But what's really shocking is that these trees are living fossils. They existed exactly like this in the time of the dinosaurs. Why? Because Chile acted as a natural fortress, protecting these species from the rest of the world through the mountains and the sea. Therefore, when you walk through an Araucaria forest, you are literally walking through a real Jurassic Park. The engine hidden in the dark. But how did such a dangerous country become so rich and modern? The answer is hidden deep in the desert, and Chile is the largest copper producer in the world. But to get this metal out of the ground, they created mines so gigantic that they can be seen from space, like the Escondida mine. What did they discover here? That without Chile, the modern world would stop. Why? Because your cell phone, your computer, and electric cars depend on the copper that comes out of this arid desert. Therefore, the country that appears to be where the earth ends is, in fact, the heart that pumps technology to the rest of the planet. Chile is a contradiction. It's the place where mummies are older than the pyramids, where houses sail, and where buildings dance. It is a country that lives on the edge, squeezed between ice and fire, but that never stops growing. Now you know, Chile is not just strange. It is the ultimate example that no matter how difficult the terrain, there is always a way to build something extraordinary.